Зустрічайте співзасновника і СЕО архітектурної компанії ORG Брюссель, Нью-Йорк та Антверпен. Під ваші бурхливі оплески містер Олександр Де Хох. Please welcome.
Hello. Thank you. I love your country and I support your struggle. And it's a privilege to be here with you, and I hope you will succeed. As you think about the future of your city, I prepared a few points for conversation that could be relevant. Let's say, I find these to be important discussions for urban planning today, and there is urban planning in Lutsk, and there will be a lot of urban planning for all of you in the country in the future. I will go through each of these four one by one, and I take my time. The organizers gave me about 40 minutes. I hope I will not bore you. If I become boring, you just start whistling. And I will know I need to speak more fast. So just 2 words about who we are. We have an office in New York and in Brussels and Antwerp. We started as architects, but also I was an academic at MIT, and we moved a lab with computation experts into the company. So now we basically have architecture, urbanism, planning, computation, and social processes, and we try to use all that together for difficult projects. So architecture, urbanism, systems. And we worked on a number of really difficult projects, and I can tell you this: to succeed in a difficult project, you always want to use 3 things together. Obviously, design, planning. There is a model, there are drawings, you need to be able to see and think the future. But also, the city is too rich for any of our brains, you know? I mean, nobody is smart enough. We have no genius in the room that can solve all the problems by themselves. So we need to create collective intelligence, which is why the word co-creation. So we try to bring the best, smartest people in the room to help discuss together. And when you live in a city, you're always an expert, because you know your city better than anybody that comes flying in. So the inhabitant is an expert of experience. Co-creation. No single brain is big enough. And then, you know, analytics, science, computation, calculation. Because we come up with great ideas, with great visions together, but we need to check that together we didn't come up with something stupid. So we want to make sure that what we want to achieve can actually be simulated and demonstrated that it works. Thankfully today there's so much power in computation that we can really test many scenarios fast. Oops. So, still part of the introduction, I want to tell you about my life mission in architecture. On the left, this is from my PhD in Delft. On the left, you see a drawing of of the Soviet palace as it was designed by Boris Iofan. It's my drawing, but the point is, it shows totalitarian architecture. The entire society, everybody together, represented in one pyramid, one singular shape, with one person at the top, Stalin. Everybody else obeys. Totalitarian form, bad. We can fragment this. We can throw it into pieces. Then we see the pieces. Everybody is different. No one has to obey. Every individual, every group in your rich society can exist next to another one, doesn't have to conform, can be different, and can coexist. Fragments on one platform that you share, which is your country. Good form, bad form. But in urban planning and in architecture, many people really, really like this. Even without Stalin, the notion of one powerful idea, one powerful organization, one organizing synthesis is an idea that is very appealing. And if you take it serious, it ends up in fascism. So in urban planning, you want to embrace difference. We will never agree. Even in Lutsk, you probably, as citizens of Lutsk, you will always have different ideas. That's good. Imagine if you lived in a city where everybody thought the same. That's a boring city. So embrace this and build a city that uses this difference to make it more pleasant. So in our work, this is a useless slide because you can't see anything, but in our work, we do this, we try to apply this in design, in form. We also try to apply this in computation. Not the bad form, but the good form, the open form. Okay, I will check how much time I have left for the 4 points. Okay. So the first principle has to do with economic development in your city or in any city. So jobs, industry, production, IT, you name it. We used to be in urban planning. This is a plan from a Soviet planner called Milutin. The idea was, for a long time, for 100 years, we need to separate all the functions. People live, work, play, separate. But you know what? We were already figured out that live and play can be together. That's fine. Work, And certainly production, factories, very dangerous. So we separated this. And every planning document still has this DNA, has this genetics of separation. For 100 years, everybody in planning was taught this way. Not only here, also in Western Europe, also in the United States. So we have to cut this cord. Even in your own city planning documents, you have zoning regulations that respect separation. Throw them out. Get rid of them. They're useless. They're based on industry of 100 years ago, when you have huge, toxic factories. Today, most of your production is small scale, is adaptable, is CAD-driven, not so toxic. And so what you want to do is build a city where everybody can create a company or a little shop. People can build their own economic future. Yes, you can work for a big company, but you can also create your own. This is perfectly possible. The city form needs to allow for it. So this is a great experiment in reintegration, integrating work, production, back into the city. I will show you a few examples of projects. One is in Brussels, the other one actually is also in Brussels. And we have one in New York, in the Brooklyn Navy Yards, where we are doing this. So this is built. Residential, industry, residential. So in this project, you separate. I will show you. So this is a regular pedestrian street, affordable housing, more affordable housing with terraces, but underneath here is light production facilities. Here is the front, so you have a small factory, you build bicycles, you have a coffee, or a beer brewery, or you even, I don't know, print paper. You have your shop, your little factory. In the front, the clients come in for buying and selling. In the back, you organize your logistics and your trucks and your people. It's good because you know what? In your city, you also want different people to work and live together. Because in this company, you have the owner, you have the blue-collar worker, you have the secretary, you have people from every class in society in one space. It's capitalism generating inter-class integration. This is why production in the city matters to help with the coexistence. This is another project. So this is realized. This is another project, housing block, pretty dense in Brussels. This block is factory, is production, light production, but production. So high floors, smaller production companies. You see here the plan. Tuck, 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 tuck. So it's all vertical stacked companies. Very simple building, just a shell. A bit like Adrenaline City, but stacked and smaller. But right next to it, residential housing. And I wanted to also show you this project, which is, I'm very proud, we worked on it for 5 years. It will start construction soon. It is the biggest production and consumption center in Belgium. Here you bring production, factory, together with selling, with retail, stores. So there's 3 giant halls. Now this is really like Adrenaline City. The size of this is almost similar. Enormous pieces. 1, 2, 3. But on the inside, it's what you saw with the small building, but now on a big scale. Production, and on the production on the higher levels, stores, retail on the lower levels. It's like a shopping mall from the future, I hope. I mean, it's a shopping mall, a production center where you can customize. So you say, I want these kinds of shoes, but I like a special print. They can make it in the store. I want a special T-shirt, they can make it in the store. And same goes for chemicals, for pills, so it's mostly textiles and chemistry here. But it's a sort of a collective space between production and consumption. This is possible because today we don't produce things 1 million at a time. We do small, customized runs of 500 pieces of this, 200 of that. You can do that in these kinds of buildings. Every hall has a different identity. This is a second hall. This is the third hall, which is more devoted to food and food culture. Okay. One focus, integrate production, jobs, employment in the city. Don't put it somewhere far away. Create a city where everybody wants to build something themselves and has the opportunity to do this. Second area of focus, pluralism. It goes back to the introduction. We know both standard Soviet housing solutions. We also know it here. Not really a lot of pluralism in the form making and in finding and developing identity. So if you want to think differently, remember the slide of the Soviet palace and then the fragmenting into different shapes, different groups. Well, if you want to do this, if you want to understand how is my community, what are they thinking, you need to find ways to understand the difference in values between different people. So we developed also a software for this. Oops. We developed a specific software tool to understand this. It is called Solv. And Solv is another company. It's a spin-out from ORG. And with Solv, all we do is try to understand the objective pluralism of a community. So for instance, here we did a quick mapping of about 250 people. And with the help of our algorithm, our algorithm this time, we were able to understand there are 6 different kinds of communities in this overall group. 6 different profiles, 6 different audiences, 6 different preferences. And we also obviously understand what everybody across these 6 has in common most of all. It's this tool or it's another tool, I don't care. The point is, try to understand how the others around you are different and find a way to respect it and bring it into the process. So I will now give you an example of how we try to do this in what is our biggest project in Antwerp. So in Antwerp there is a highway. You see it here? It's a highway that was built in the late 50s around the old city. So it's a 1.5 million people. But as you can see, this highway really runs in the middle of the city. And that's not good. So we're going to basically build bridges over it, but a lot of bridges. And in fact, we're just going to cover it and make it disappear mostly. So then, and by the way, that's, this is a portion of the filling of the capping, putting roofs over the highway. Big discussion. All the architects said, we want one big park. One big park, 18 kilometers for the whole city. Everything is one figure. And we said, well, maybe that's not such a great idea. Yes, you will have some continuity. You really, really should have 8, 9 completely different parks that connect. You can feel that the bike path and the furniture is continuous, but you are in different metropolitan atmospheres. So we are realizing all of these. It's amazing. It's really it's a 7 billion euro project. It also involves completing the highway. But the discussions about pluralism have been very useful here. Excuse me, I'm going to leave this up for just another second. So the discussion about one park or many parks, I thought was very instructive. And again, I'm also a designer. Many of us designers said, one park, it's the biggest, nicest figure. It's like just as if big itself is good. Big is just something. It's not necessarily good. Each of these parks is still around 500 meters to 1 kilometer long. So these are not small parks. So we can have an enormous size. We can also have diverse experiences. So you see here some of the sizes. Overall, it's It's an enormous operation. It is really the key missing green figure for the city. So think about it for Lutsk for a moment. In Lutsk, you have it already. In Antwerp, we had it, then we lost it due to development and traffic. And so now it costs us 7 billion to build it. We could have put the 7 billion somewhere else if we had been smarter, like you will be. There are also enormous health benefits. I mean, living very close to a highway is associated with increased dementia and cancer rates, which is really a problem. This is a huge highway. I cannot emphasize it enough. This is useless. It's a huge highway. It's connecting the port of Antwerp to everything else in Europe, and the port of Antwerp is the second biggest port. So there's basically a lot of the goods for Germany come through Antwerp. So it's just an enormous machine, and all these trucks go through the middle of the city. So it's really not great. So again, also co-creation. We did all this. We involved about 5,000 people in the design process, at tables, with publications, with many sessions, did many efforts to connect people, exactly like Urban Reform and Algorytm are doing here with you. I really believe this is the right way to go, because if you're going to do something, you need to if you're going to do something, that investment for everybody, you have to understand how it can benefit everybody. So the beauty is this is under construction. You know, this is one of the first coverings for the highway that's completed, and many others underway. One note about pluralism: it's not just a question of taste, of form, of color, or whatever. It's quite fundamental to how we exist, also in terms of technology. I would like to use the example of mobility, how you move about. You can use your feet, sure. You can use your car, sure. In Antwerp, there's a lot of cars. In fact, there is too many cars. Everything is stuck in traffic all the time. So we also want pluralism in modes of traffic. So we want to stimulate good investment in bicycle systems, in tramways, and in subways. So there was the existing spread, let's say, is that 63% of all the movements are cars. So we want to bring it down to below 50 and really have more people in other modes. Why? Because we want to have more people move, but not with the car. There's no room left. Everything is stuck. And there's no money to build more highways. So we built a computational model to allow us to analyze hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ideas. Citizen ideas. Ideas from experts. Ideas from the mayor. Ideas from an investor. Everybody welcome. We can test and we can run a scenario and see if it makes any sense. Everything that makes sense, we can add to go from 63 to 50. So many, I mean, these are just a few of the hundreds of measures. We were able to build comparisons, compare for every measure thanks to the computation model. We don't have to wait long. We can just put it in a machine, run the output. And so, again, making science democratically accessible to everybody helped with the decision making, just avoids bad decisions altogether, and everyone can test if their idea makes sense. And finally, we are able to make the right choices for the highest impact. Yeah. So these are just, never mind, but these are just 2 sheets of the 500 of all the different ideas and propositions made by both experts and citizens alike. Last project, just to bring the first 2 themes together: production in cities and pluralism. Many opinions and ideas in one form. This is a project also in Brussels. It used to be the hall where cows were traded. Cows coming in from the countryside were traded between farmers or for slaughtering. So it's a redevelopment. All these blocks are basically light industry with some other urban functions. And one of them was finished. I want to show it to you. So this is a combination of a market with on the behind here fridges and meat butchering facilities. So to cut the meat, clean it, freeze it. So it's a set of companies that you can buy, but it also there's really production in the market. On top we have what is for now the biggest urban farm in Brussels, 7,000 square meters. Okay. I will check my time, but I believe we're okay, and I would like to move on to point 3. Okay. Boss, yep. Boss says, I am okay, I am okay. Are you okay? The third issue, it will not be a surprise to you, climate change. Central Europe just flooded, thankfully not in Ukraine, but in Poland, Germany, many neighboring, Slovakia, many neighboring countries. A lot of trouble, tens of people dead, thousands of people losing everything. It's complete devastation due to flooding. We also have, and this is happening in 2020 in Ivano-Frankivsk. It happened in Belgium 2 years ago. It will happen more and more. So the essence of climate change is that the energy contained in the weather increases as it gets hotter. More energy in the weather means more power in every event. More power means more heat, more flooding, more extremes. Everything more extreme. It's okay. We can manage, but we need to think about it and be smart. Like we need to keep our rivers very open and wide, not build in our river flood zones, never build like you have the Stier and the Sapal Life. Yeah, thank you. Don't build near them. Stop it, don't do it. It is such an important buffer. So flooding is a major risk in countries like Ukraine. If you think about long-term future or mid-term future, also heat islands. It says here cities are up to 4 degrees warmer. It's not even true. There's a recent research that gives 10-degree differences if you have a mineral surface. So, I mean, just something to take into account. I know you have other things on your mind as a nation, and for good reason. But as you plan for the future, it's good to also, besides managing the risk of your neighbors, managing this risk that comes from above. So I will give you an example. This is a street in a town that we worked in, overdimensioned. It had this city had too much asphalt. Everything was, you don't see it here, but I mean basically wherever there is development, everything is completely mineralized. Total over-dimensioning of public infrastructure. It's crazy, it costs a lot of money too, and then it's useless. So the project we did here was just, cut up the concrete, cut up the asphalt, whatever you don't need, and plant trees. It's not very expensive, because it doesn't involve a lot of concrete, it involves taking away concrete. And so it means you have to rethink, you have to think very carefully. I think you should put your best designers on road design. Don't leave it only to engineers, because the roads need to become a little bit narrower, but still be safe and still be smooth. But somebody needs to really, you as designers and planners need to think and work with the roadway and infrastructure planners to reduce where possible. And so what used to be 3 lanes and 3 lanes, we were in many sections able to reduce to just 1 and 1. Access to the shopping mall still exists, but it's also really used for other modes. Bicycles, for instance. Small cities, excuse me, to call Lutsk a small city, but small cities have the amazing advantage that they are not big. And if you're not big, it doesn't take too much time to cross from the south to the north and the east to the west. So you can do a lot with bicycles, if it's safe and it's smooth. And by the way, electric bicycles are so easy because you put the energy in the bike. It doesn't cost very much money to have a battery. And then it's really smooth and easy, except, of course, when it snows. which you have as well. But there's also solutions for a number of those days. So this was part of a pretty strong regreening, less concrete project. This is another project we are doing in Kinshasa, in sub-Saharan Africa, where from the beginning we just focused. I just wanted to show this, to leave open large green lungs that collect all the rainwater, big rainfall there, collect all the rainwater so that it doesn't flood, and then carry it off safely. But you need substantial green corridors to be able to do this. So this is the only way really that you can manage flood risk, is to have substantial green basins, flood zones, where you will be okay. There was a lot of climate analysis involved in this that I will not go into detail for, but you can tell. And we're showing this, Hendrik and I selected this image because in a way, I mean, if you squint your eyes, you can see perhaps a little bit the Stier and the other river. Like you see here, in the Sapalaivka. Okay. This brings me to the fourth point. The fourth point, I'm still on time, yeah, is really about public space. So your public spaces, our public spaces, is what we share with everybody. Everybody has an opinion, but also they need to service so much. You need to drive your car. You need to ride your bike. Maybe you want to park. You need to help it with flood risk. It needs to help with when it's too hot. So much service is needed. That's not very easy. So to be smart about and really make this a project to integrate all these needed services in a limited area and upgrade your public spaces, your most important public spaces, it will be really amazing for you and for your city. By the way, it helps greatly with tourism. You will feel prouder about your city because you have really beautiful, well-designed, up to standard public spaces, which is your collective ownership, let's say. I can show you a few case studies on this. So one of them was we were asked by the Brussels region to just make a manual for all of all their streets, all their boulevards, all their plazas. What are the rules for design? Hendrik was aiming to this also in his presentation. This particular slide I wanted to show because we also made it digital, so it's a GIS platform, so anybody can go to click any street and then see what the specific recommendations and rules are in that street. So you help make design more democratic. You be as transparent as possible about knowledge and share it as much as you can. Yeah, this washes out a little bit, but this is, for instance, a street where you have a pretty difficult negotiation between, you have a lot of services that are needed, but not enough space. So you need to start to organize coexistence. You know, you have a bicycle parking, the bike path, trees, pedestrians, occasionally a fire truck or something else needs to be able to come through. Somebody that is not well physically needs to be able to stop with their car, drop off their groceries, their shopping. So find designs that allow for all of these functions. And using that, we also redeveloped the zone of the canal in Brussels. So this is the city of Brussels. The European district, the EU headquarters is somewhere here on the hill. But Brussels has, beside the hill, also the lower city, the city of industry, the city not of the proud institutions with nice white shirts, but of the working class. That's here. It's not in great shape. It doesn't look very great. It's not always very great. So what we did here is we really developed also a hardcore public space and regreening scheme to, even though you may not have the most beautiful buildings, you will still create pride and quality by creating a grid and a system of good streets with clear, let's say, vegetative rooms that provide a basic quality to this part of the town. And it involves also really detailed, as I mentioned, I mean, this sounds very technical, but from big ideas, if you want to realize big ideas, you have to get very technical. And so this is one, just concrete designing the street, discussing with the traffic engineers and with everybody else, how much space, and we're talking about centimeters for this and for that, and how do you put it together? Here again, we have 2 tram lines, 3 streets coming together, a bicycle system, cars everywhere. The coexistence is just not evident, and you just don't always have the space. So I can close off with this. This is my last slide. I hope it was clear with these 4 points. The first one being innovation and production, new forms of production, customized production, light production in the city, in the middle of your fabric. Perfectly possible, actually necessary, and will help with your economic development. Second, pluralism. Yes, you can have many opinions and many values in one city, in one urban form, and you have to discuss it together how to make that happen. But please give room to that. Third, climate change, heating, cooling, and specific strategies to deal with that, to protect yourself, de-risk yourself over the next decades. And then fourth, your public spaces. And really a tenderness, love, and affection for your public spaces. I will wrap up here, but I wanted to start from Stalin's totalitarian palace and go to software that helps embrace openness and many values, and design somewhere in the middle. And city planning, urban planning is somewhere in the middle, as a way to get out of the trap of singular thinking. Thank you very much.
Ваші аплодисменти. Mr. Alexander, maybe someone has questions. Можливо, хтось має запитання. Yeah. Nobody. So thank you very much. This applause is for you. I guess if you will be in Ukraine for a longer time, you can change. So here in Ukraine we have name Alexander. It's called soft Ukrainization. Yes, лагідна українізація. So thank you very much and welcome to Ukraine. Thank you. Yeah.